You're listening to the Scaling Wellness Podcast, the podcast dedicated to sharing the what, why, and how of scaling your wellness practice, as well as sharing inspiring stories of how others did it themselves. I'm your host, DJ Turner, author, agency owner, houseplant lover, and your go-to guy for scaling your wellness practice. If you're looking for tips on how to grow your team, book more clients, and get out of the day-to-day in your practice, you've come to the right place. Now sit back, relax, and let's get into the episode. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Scaling Wellness Podcast. Today's episode, I'm be sitting down with Cameron Lacy, the owner of Intuit Healing in Chicago, Illinois, where she and her 10-therapist team provide massage, energy work. There's also talk therapist and other holistic services for healing. So I really love this conversation, and I think Cameron's got a very interesting story. When she was young, she faced difficult experiences with bullying and suicidal thoughts. She received counseling to help her process those emotions, which ultimately saved her life during this traumatic period. And rather than considering this as a sign of frailty or failure, going to counseling for an extended period of time really taught her to be emotionally attuned and very emotionally intelligent. And she viewed the experience overall positively and gained so much from it. From that point forward, her life was never the same. She began entering this whole new world of energy work after visiting a friend as well in Costa Rica, something that had been totally unknown to her, but deeply resonated with her. And continuing this world of healing, she began moving into massage therapy. So it's a really cool conversation. She's got a really great practice. She has really scaled something well beyond herself and started to bring in other modalities of healing. And I think this is so cool. So we get into her emotional intelligence, what she did to grow the business. We get into what was it like to grow the team up to the size it is now. We get into things of like HR and managing team members and setting boundaries with employees. We talk about how she's able to get into the community. What did she do to become more empowered as a business owner? And just what are some of the pros and cons of being able to step away as an owner at the time of recording? I think she's probably around 6 months pregnant when we recorded this episode. So I want to say congratulations, Cameron, on the birth of your little one. And we get a little bit into that of like, okay, what do you have to do to set up a business that size when you know you're going to need to step away? So it's a really fun episode. I love this conversation with Cameron. Without any further ado, let's get into the episode. So Cameron, I'm really excited to dive into this conversation to just learn more about the story of you and how you've grown Intuit Healing. Where I want to begin is just to provide some context. So tell us about your practice. How big's the team? What's the space like? What the services offers, and just what you guys are all about.
Yeah, right now my team is about 10 employees. We have 4 treatment rooms of body work, 1 treatment room for counseling, and then a waiting area. So it's tiny, but it is homey. It's really cozy. It's a total small business in Chicago. It's not a corporate space whatsoever, which is nice. We're in a warehouse building on the 2nd floor, so we're by appointment only. It gets rid of, a lot of the hanky-panky that walk-ins bring our industry in general. It's designed to be like a secret safe space, basically.
I really love that, a secret safe space. So I also love learning about the people behind these businesses. So I'm curious, if we turn back time and we think about like middle school, late middle school, early high school, that 13 to 15-year-old range, who were you at that time? What were you interested in?
I was a nerd and I got bullied extremely, like very, very badly, to the point that, I'll just be transparent because I feel like it makes things easier to understand. I was pretty suicidal at a young age. And so I went into counseling very early in my life to try to understand what my feelings were and how I fit inside of them and how that fit inside of the world that I was operating in. Because the world that I was occupying, I was living in really small town America. I lived in an incredibly racist town. I came from Colorado to this little small town in Illinois that they do not like a lot of people. And it was an incredibly hard transition. And yeah, I very much feel like counseling saved my life. And I've been in therapy for a huge portion of my life. And I've never looked at that as like a weakness or a downfall. I've looked at it as a success and something as like a tool to work with, which I guess is why I'm a very much a feelings based person. And I think it's based off of that time in my life, like learning how to be emotionally intelligent and realizing that emotional intelligence is, I mean, logic and everything, it's like goes a million miles, but emotional intelligence is really underrated and can really support you in a very successful, very fulfilling life.
So you had your own background coming across therapy, going throughout your own life. What was it that made you go down the path of wellness and massage as a career?
Well, I came from a pretty poor family. And so college was kind of out of the question for me. But I didn't want to stop. I was a really good student. I wanted to continue living my life. And I ended up going visiting a friend in Costa Rica. And that's where I was exposed to energy work for the first time in my life. And I met some practitioners down there, both like energy workers, Reiki practitioners, as well as like straight up witches. And they exposed me into this world that I had no idea existed. And it felt real. It felt like a homecoming. It felt really, it settled really well within myself and my spirit. But when I came home from that journey, I realized I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more about the connection of like that, the body and the spirit. And I realized the easiest way for me personally to do that was to go to massage therapy school because it was a trade school, it was a 1 year commitment, and it was something I could handle when it came to finances. Although predatory student loans, who can handle that? But we all are working it out.
Mhm. So, how did the vision for what your space would come to be, how did that first come about?
Well, I thought Intuit Healing would be something else entirely, but what I've learned about having a business is it's really similar to raising a child. It's going to be what it wants to be, like, and you have to allow it to have space to grow into what it needs to be. My intentions that I set for Intuit were I had spent several years inside of the industry and I decided to go be my own, solo practitioner. And after working solo for quite some time, I really missed working with people, like other peers, having that around me, having other knowledge and interests that other people have surrounding me. So I wanted to make a space where I could work with other people, but I really wanted to make a space that um, treated massage therapists as healthcare providers and gave them an actual career because we live in that borderline of is it a service industry or is it healthcare? Depends on where you are, depends on the licensure. We don't have like national regulations, and it leads to murky territory with things. And so I find, at least in my previous career, I felt it was quite unfair that I had such a vast amount of knowledge and passion and care for like my patients, but I would never be able to have a full-fledged supported career inside of what I've studied to do. So I really wanted to make a space where that was a possibility for massage therapists. And I wanted to make a space that dealt with the mind, body, and soul connection. So instead of like focusing on one thing, we had a space that everyone was licensed in certain different practices. So they worked within their ethics, they worked within their bounds. and we could fill in the gaps for the people that wanted those gaps filled. I very much wanted to make a space that everybody felt taken care of, even if it wasn't in my space. They knew that we could recommend other practitioners locally or somewhere else that could help them along their healing journey. I just wanted to take care of people, both employee wise, client wise, as well as myself, you know?
So it's really easy to look at how things are today and think, wow, that's amazing. Look at the different modalities and also different disciplines and having talk therapy and energy work in house. But what did that first year of business look like? Can you just paint us a picture of sort of the day to day at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I opened and 6 months later, COVID happened. So I had to close my doors within 6 months of opening. And how I opened was, it's always risky opening any kind of business. It doesn't matter if it's a brick and mortar or an online business, it's a risky endeavor to work for yourself. And then when COVID happened, if you remember back at that time, we didn't know if it was transferred by touch. And it was the realization that, oh man, I just opened a business that is like only about touch. And now there's a global pandemic and we're all wearing like gloves to the grocery store and washing our fruit, like it was really an intense time. But, I got through it. Like I just tried to breathe and be in the moment and realize that it was either going to work or it wasn't going to work. And it ended up working. I ended up, utilizing some of the government support and whatnot. And all of the therapists I had at the time, of course, were understanding. I mean, the world was shutting down. But it was a pretty like radical time when I first opened, because I opened in September and it was just so exciting. I had this beautiful space that I designed myself, and we had a big banger of a party with clients and friends and neighborhood people to come and see the space. And a few months later, it was closed. So I've just spent the time growing the roots of this space. Like I had a really loyal client, an extremely loyal clientele, and they really pulled through and helped me out in growing my practice.
And so we're going to go back and forth a little bit and looking at things at a different time period. But I wanted to ask, so you opened the practice 6 months later, having to shut down for COVID. Just when we look at the journey of where you started, especially to where you are now, what have been some of those key decisions, high points, major milestones? Like if you were to just to give us the highs and lows highlight reel of what that journey has been, what are some of those things?
Oh boy. Wow. What a question. I think one of the craziest highs was quitting my job and going into solo practice. I quit my job and went to Thailand for a month and turned 30. And I remember coming back on the plane and realizing I didn't have a job. And that was a pretty intense moment. And I was flying United too by accident. And so it was just like bad vibes all the way. So that was a pinnacle moment. Another pinnacle moment was I rented an office from an acupuncture studio to start out with. And I quickly became booked, which felt really good. And not all of them were from their patients. It was a lot on my own. So that was a realization of, oh, I'm a badass and I can do this. Like, not that it isn't a big deal, but like this can be done like fairly easily with just a little bit of grit and work, And I'm not saying any of these are good or bad because I think they're all good and bad. Like there's good and bad mixed into all of these moments. When I found my space, ironically, is the space that it is in the same office building of the acupuncture space that I rented, as well as where I learned Thai massage. So it's like this building had always been surrounding me in my career. And now I'm opening my own business inside of this building. So that was a pinnacle. Hiring my first employee firing my first employee, dealing with client interactions, and ultimately, through the pandemic, I ended up getting pregnant with my firstborn. And afterwards, I retired from touch therapy. So I do not treat patients anymore whatsoever. And I'm well on to the second. And walking away from my business that I built for maternity leave to take care of my family, those are intense moments as well. But yeah, I think going the slow route and building roots along the way and finding people in a team that you can at least communicate with really clearly, I think is incredibly important. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my highlight reel, because every one of those moments was like really, really good and not what I expected and completely horrible at the same time. So
I think that's a great answer to the question. I like asking it just because it kind of lets you see, I think, what is it, the Steve Jobs, the dots can only make sense looking back, not so much going forward, and just seeing what is the process that someone goes through when they're building something, because I think it's really not the same for everyone. And also trying to, one, I kind of want to break the idea. It's really easy to think of like all growth is super linear. It's definitely not. There's all of these twists and turns, and no person has had remotely close to the same kind of answer to that question. I think those things are just kind of beautiful to hear, and also I think really important for people to hear of like, here's what actually happens along this journey. And so I like looking at transition points. I think those are some of the most interesting things. When I think of transitions, I think of like quitting a job, first hire, first fire, first expansion, all of these sorts of things. So when we look at your first hire, talk us through what that was like. How did you know or even decide that you wanted to hire? And what was it like going out and finding someone else to come work with you?
that was a while ago. The first time, well, really, I think when you're in the solo practitioner space, I think with massage therapy, it's a lot about feast or famine. It's like, I need to do all of this work so I can make all of this money and do all of this stuff. And when you're in that headspace, like all you can see is that, like, oh, I could actually make money and not be doing the massages. And you think of it that way. So that's the headspace I was in at that time. And just like a sidebar of advice for anyone that's in that space, it's not true. Like hiring someone is a lot of work to like have employees. It's a lot of work to maintain employees, and you're committing to taking care of a person. It's not just that you're going to like 50% commission off of the work that they do. So that sidebar I feel like needs to be said. But where I was, I just put like an ad on Indeed, and I had a few people respond because it appeals to some people to work for a startup. It appeals to some people to work for a team of one or two. It's a certain kind of person. And one of the people that interviewed, I actually had known through the queer community, some mutual friends that we had. And it just felt very kismet and very aligned. Plus, their work was fantastic. Their ethics are fantastic. They were a great fit. And once I expanded into my bigger facility, it just took a couple of months to realize we weren't on the same page with one another, but we left amicably with one another. It was just realizing that sometimes when growth happens, like it happens different for every person, and you have to be open to like flow and change. And I think people in our industry, like in alternative medicine in general, don't know how to compartmentalize the personal self, the emotional self, and the work self a lot of times. And like that particular like situation like that, or with employees, that's work. Like you have to be able to flow with work and know that like everyone has their own life, their own agenda, and their own goals. And that's not personal.
So I want to know what your approach to just growth has been. I think of two easy extremes. We have like the gardeners and they're planting seeds and watering them and maybe not 100% sure what they're going to grow into. We've got like architects who they sit down and they plan out every meticulous detail and reverse engineer how to go build it. For you, I don't know anyone who's built a team of 10 by accident, at least so far. What has growth been like for you? Like, what's your approach been to growing your business?
Very slow and steady. I think I would be the solid mix of like the architect that likes to garden on the weekends, like out of your metaphor. Like I have plans, I have ideas, I have intentions, but I also realize that time, space, commitment, people all work within those plans and ideas. And I can't force anything to happen. Like I'm an energy worker. Like it has to happen. It has to happen when it's supposed to. Like there's no such thing as coincidence. I'm not going to, if I'm feeling resistance, that's not a time for me to like charge into that. That's a time for me to like sit and try to understand why resistance is present and should I change my approach or my intention. So I very much I've changed a lot of things. Like when I first opened Intuit, I only had 1 or 2 employees and I rented out my rooms. So I rented out rooms to other practitioners, people that didn't provide the services that I provided. I had medical doctors in there, like a whole bunch of things, in thinking, well, maybe I would make this a wellness center. And that's not for me. So I quit renting and slowly have grown my hours. I've slowly grown my team as much as like need is there. My intention has been one day I would like to be open 10 to 8, 6 days a week, fully staffed. And right now I'm fully staffed at 5 days a week. And, it's like I've allowed it to flow into what it has become. But like, there's been a lot of change along the ways and trying to not resist change so much as trying to learn from it. Like I've learned from every person that I've hired. I've learned from every person I fired. I have a great HR manual from all those lessons. I've learned from every renter that's been in the space. I know why I don't want to rent to people. Like I think a big part of my growth process is trying things. And I'm really like to collaborate. And I really believe in community. Like, while this is my space, this is my brand, this is my house, I want people to invest in it as well. And so that means a lot of things, like what can you and what do you want to contribute? How do you see yourself inside of these walls? What type of therapist are you? How can I support you in the type of therapist you are today and the one you want to become? Like, I don't think I'm with you. I don't think growth is linear for a business. And I don't think that for a human either. And I think I've really tried and I have failed and I continue to fail and I will continue to fail. But I continue to try to understand that the only reason I have success is because of the people that I employ as well as the people that I empower. And they do the same for me. Like, I'm employed and empowered because of those people. And we have a job to do because of our clientele and our like ethics and service that we want to provide. So I feel like that's really the root and the foundation that I have found over the years. And as much as like, that's what I'm watering, that's what I'm honoring. And that is what brings people to the table.
We'll be back with this episode in just a moment. But first, let me ask you a question. Does it ever feel like you're stuck on some sort of business treadmill? Despite all the hard work you put in, it feels like you aren't actually going anywhere. And at first, growing your practice and filling it with clients was everything you ever dreamed of. But now, the day-to-day of your business is starting to almost feel like a never-ending nightmare. You know you love your clients, you maybe even built a team, and you can't imagine giving any of it up, yet at the same time, you feel like you just can't seem to escape. If that sounds like you, I want to offer you an alternative. I like to call it wellness practice freedom. It's a place where your practice gives you more than just money. When you get to this point, you're no longer the main engine in the vehicle, and instead, you finally get to act like the driver. And most importantly, you'll be in a place where you can work as little or as much as you'd like, because you know that your practice is built in a way that it can thrive without you. Sound interesting? Then I want to invite you to take the journey to achieving wellness practice freedom. During this call, we'll dive into exactly what freedom looks like for you, the changes that you need to take, and what's going to allow you to step back from your business without worrying about your income or everything falling apart. Ready to get started? Then head over to my calendar at www.scalingwellness.com/chat. Again, that's www.scalingwellness.com/chat. Now, let's get back to the episode. I really appreciate you sharing that and the input, that idea. Really, just your success is a direct result of the other people that you've empowered, the people you brought in. I think that's so important just to highlight. I can't remember which book I was reading. I go through a lot of them, but it's very easy to have this idea of like the great man. Just this one person is going to go and like save the day and be amazing. And if you really want to go someplace far, that's not really true at all. In the same regard, so what's been your approach to, I guess I'll call it team culture? I have two questions written down. One is, what's your approach to team culture, and what's your approach to keeping your team motivated and working? And if I were to condense them, when you have a group of people, you're managing the skills, you're managing emotions, there's a lot of things kind of coming together. What's been your approach to getting people on board to row the ship in the same direction in terms of growing the business, but also taking care and having really great quality of care of the patients?
I think that's an interesting question, because with massage therapy and energy work and counseling, it's like very feeling based space. So a lot of times, like, it's just so hard being a boss and a manager. For anyone that wants to like do that and sit in that shoes, like just realize like it's always going to be your fault. Like, or you have to like hold something that's not yours and be able to really know what your boundaries are, you are accountable for, what you're not accountable for. Like you have to be really clear about who you are and what you are in this. So I think that would be a part of this answer, is like knowing my own boundaries, because like I can't bring my shit to the table when everyone else, like, this is the space for them to bring up their things. Like I have to be really clear about who I am inside of my space as well as with my employees. And I have to communicate that regularly. And honestly, I have failed at that several times, and I've gotten better and better over time. And it's an evolution. And honestly, it's listening to critique and taking the critique. So I guess in how do I people motivated is listening, I think, is a really big key. Like hearing what is happening inside of this space that is not working for them, and being able to decipher, is that something that is my responsibility to change? Is that something that's their responsibility to work on in their personal life? Really knowing where the line is of like, I'm your boss and manager, and I create a safe space for you to work in and a safe space for you to create in, versus I'm not your therapist. Like you have to be able to balance those two things, because you want people to feel safe, tell you what's going on so you can support them. I think for me, that's the biggest thing, especially in our industry, knowing that like, I've got your back. Like, this is a small business and I want you to know I've got your back all the way, but I can't have your back if you don't communicate with me. So communication is really, really key as well. But I also so massage therapy, there's not like a lot of training and documentation or protection or actual business logistics. And I have found over my time of being an entrepreneur that I have had to have like some quick and hard studies on how to run a business, how to protect yourself, how to live inside of an ethical environment, both in business as well as within the scope of practice that we operate in. not to mention like, business owner, there's a ton of things, marketing, everything. And I really like education. So I think education is power for every person, whether that's a client that's on the table needing to know why they need to come back because this is what we're working on, what we're releasing, and why, versus a therapist that's like, the reason you need to work on your retention rate is so you can book yourself up so you have guaranteed income coming in. And the more you work for yourself, the more I can work for you. Like, this is a space that you work. This is your house. Like, let's work together on how we can build a home for you so you can stay and develop and grow and bloom. And I'm well aware, leave one day and go do your own thing and one day be my competition, but you have to put in the effort and the work and the knowledge to make yourself feel empowered to have those things.
And as the business has grown, I think there's, every business grows, the owner is going to grow with it as well. And I would really make the argument that, in fact, the business is not going to grow if the owner doesn't grow.
Mhm.
As you have gone through this journey, how has your role changed as owner? I'm really curious, especially about the things you had to do more of or things that you've let go of in order to get to where you are today.
Yeah. So at first I was doing everything, I had a full book of clients 3 or 4 days a week. I can't really remember. And then I was running the space. I was doing the front desk. I was helping people get booked. I was doing everything. And then I got pregnant and I was forced to let go. And which was good for me because I need to be forced into letting go of control sometimes. And I did. But, in all honesty, in retrospect, I look back and I think I let go of a bit too much control. And rightfully so. I mean, I got into my personal life. I created a human and birthed a human, and I had postpartum anxiety and depression pretty badly. And I stayed home with my baby. I was investing all of the money that I had been making back into the business. And I just really wanted to invest in my family and in myself. And so I left the business to what started out as an intern and turned into a manager role individual to handle most of the day in, day out things, front desk, booking, client relations, management between staff. A lot of those basic things were left to them and everyone in the space as they did as massage therapists or counselors. And it went really well, like I very much could have continued to develop that type of lifestyle of being an absentee owner. But situations have changed. And I realize now, going into my second maternity leave, how much my presence really affects the space. Just the space on its own, as well as my employees, as well as the clientele. And for me, when I really think of this is my last baby I'm going to have, and when I think about my life, like honestly, Intuit is my first kid. It's the first thing I've built from scratch. It's mine, and I've watched it grow into something I never thought it would be. Like I never thought my business would look and be the way that it is. And I'm so glad that it is what it is, like thank God I didn't have that plan in the future. You can't see everything. And I just realized now that like I really want to invest and be in that space. And while I know absentee owner is like a really good thing for a lot of people, and it will be good when I'm ready to start another project or another endeavor. But right now, I like participating in the management of the space just because I've grown into becoming a mother, and that's very much the vibe is that like I'm the mom of this space. I'm very much there to help you, to mentor, to take care of this space, to pay you, to guide you, to do all those things. But at the same time, like this is my house and you need to respect my house. And only moms can give off those energies, like not other people stepping in for them. And my business is still really young. It needs that guidance, I feel.
And so there's no business or business owner that I know of that hasn't made some form of mistake. I think you've already alluded to some of them in the past. When you think about the mistakes or the lessons that were not so fun to learn, what are the things that stand out to you? Or is there any one that stands out to you as one that you really learned a lot from?
I had a situation with renter that during COVID, we had an agreement to push rent back until they came back and then to do a payment plan. And that particular practice, which was a medical practice, like they had several locations and were well off, they decided to ghost me for rent and damages. So that was a journey that I had to go through. Also, like really learning the legality of things when it comes to people's life. Like if you're a boss, if you're employing someone, like I know there's a million ways you can look at it, but at the end of the day, black and white, you're an employer and that affects people's livelihoods. And so you really need to get clear about the legality of things. And then we live in a day and age now where there is a thing of cancel culture. There are things of identity politics and things like that. And just always trying to do your best and be clear and communicate and stand on what your ethics and morals are about those things. I think those are some of my biggest lessons that I've learned.
And so you've come so far. When you look to the future, what's next for you? Is there something you're working on, or is this a place to sit in for some time?
Well, yeah, right now I just want to like give birth and like go through maternity leave. And I'm going to say, I hope everything's going to be fine. I know everything's going to be fine at Intuit just because I really trust my team. Everyone's an adult. Everyone is very respectful and they're just like a fantastic group of professionals. I know everything will be fine, but when you walk away from something, it's difficult for a while. So I just want to get through that. And then my problem is I have too many ideas of things that I want to do. I need to work on slowing down and slowing my roles. So while like I could share a ton of projects that I'm working on and things I have up my sleeve and wanting to rework hospital care systems and things like that. But like, really, I think this is a time in my life that I need to be a mother to both my family as well as my business. I need to sit in my garden because the things have grown. I need to like have some gratitude right now and the time for pushing forward. I really want to take stock right now.
So this has been a fantastic conversation. I've got a few more quick questions. They don't have to have quick answers. My first, I'm curious, what's your current obsession? I think for me right now, it is one, using a microplane and not grating my thumb when I grate garlic, but in general, kind of bumping up my cooking techniques to see how can I maximize health and flavor. What do you say is your current obsession?
I feel you there. I'm a big cook, but right now I have really been spending a lot of time with different types of self-care that I've never invested in before. Like your sister's getting her nails done now. I'm doing a whole bunch of things that I've never done before. And it's just because I need to reinvest some time and space for myself. And I have always worked in a job that has used my hands, and I've never been able to like adorn my hands. So I've gotten really into that. Like I'm getting my nails done, I'm wearing jewelry, I'm doing things like that. And I know it sounds like so silly and simple, but after 15 years of like not being able to do those things, it feels very like I kind of feel bad, like I shouldn't be doing it, but also I'm really excited that I am doing it.
And when you think about your business journey, your personal growth journey, is there any resource, a book, a course, a podcast, a person, whatever, something or someone that is a favorite of yours or stands out as having been really helpful?
Yeah, you sent me this question. It was the only one I was like, I don't know. Because there's a million books I could say, there's a million things, but really the biggest influence to me has been like almost every business owner I have run into, I have talked with, I've collaborated with, as well as people from my tribe. I think that's really where a lot of my inspiration has come from. I'm not like, I listen to Audible just like the rest of them about my business books and everything like that. But where it really comes down to me is like practical relationships and practical management. And the best I've been able to do with that is really looking at my community, which is a community of professionals, and being vulnerable and sharing what's going on and not having enough pride to withhold it, and actually talking about things. Like my community, in the healing community in Chicago in whole, is very good and inspiring.
And we've covered so much in this conversation. Do you have any final words of advice or wisdom for our listeners?
Yeah, fuck it. Like, just do it. If you feel like this is something you have to do, like, don't let fear govern your life. Like, fear has a place to help you, but fear holding you back is not always the most helpful thing. And always like know that like what you intend to happen, like 9 times out of 10 is like not going to be the thing that happens like ever. And so just don't like hold on so tightly to like what things need to be, how things should be. Have an intention and go make it happen. Like you can make anything happen, and realize that like it's not a solo endeavor. Like I solo own my business, but man, my business is so many people beyond me.
So thank you again so much for sitting down and having this conversation. Where's the best place to go if someone wants to either learn more about you, your business, or just get connected with you?
Just go to our website, intuithealing.com, or you can go on Instagram at intuit_healing. I think those are the best places to like see our people, see our vibe, and you can always reach out via email.
Thank you again. And thanks everyone who's watching, listening, however it is you're consuming this content. That's all for this interview, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. The Scaling Wellness Podcast is hosted and produced by yours truly, VJ Turner. Administration, guest research, editing, and associate production by Helen C. For highlights and updates, follow us on Instagram at Scaling Wellness. And for more information on how to scale your practice up and get out of the day-to-day, head to www.scalingwellness.com.